Call the meeting to order. We're fortunate this evening to have Pastor Ross Halberson with the New Hope Alliance Church to deliver us an invocation. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us.
Welcome. Will you stand for the invocation, please? Father of heaven, creator of the universe, we address this prayer to you. We thank you for the community in which we live and for those who serve and work to make this place a wonderful place in all of your created universe. For those who are recognized tonight for their achievements, thank you. For the work that will be done, may truth be spoken and may it be seasoned with much grace, so that that which is decided is of benefit to this community as a whole. So may we be mindful to both listen and speak kindly. In the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Pastor Fisher, would you lead us in the pledge?
Please face the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So this evening, we're also fortunate enough to have Scoutmaster Tim Bragihini with Troop 31 with some of his scouts. And if you'd come forward, sir, and your troop and have them introduce yourselves, we appreciate you being with us.
Hi, I'm Tim Bergini, Troop 31, Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints out by Apple Pie Ridge Elementary. Bring the boys up.
I am Kevin Pilcher, a scout, Boy Scout.
Aaron Butterfield, I am a first class.
My name is Caleb Tidwell. I am a Life Scout.
I am Isaac Tidwell and first class.
I'm Dallin Butterfield and I'm a Life Scout.
I am Samuel Beezer, and I'm a scout.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Adoption of the agenda. Are there any proposed changes?
Mr. Chair, I think you would want to hear item E or consider item E after the public hearing behind tab J.
We're going to move E to 3B or 2B after our last public hearing, our second public hearing. Is that
Yes, sir.
your proposal?
Yes, sir.
Chair would entertain a motion to that effect.
I would so move.
Second.
Excuse me.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you. Consent agenda.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to approve, sir, second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Consent agenda is adopted. This is a portion of the meeting that we set aside for citizen comments on agenda items only that are not subject to public hearing. Did anyone sign up?
No, sir.
No? Thank you. Board of Supervisors comments, are there any? All right. Minutes were approved under consent.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir?
just make one quick comment. Appreciate the scouts that are here, used to be in scouting. Hope those Life Scouts become Eagle Scouts. It's a good organization. Really appreciate your involvement with young men. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. All right, Supervisor Fisher, could you give me a hand? Mr. Jeff Jerome, come forward, please. Thank you. Employee of the Month Award Program recognizes county employees as an important and valuable resource. On behalf of the Board of Supervisors, it's my pleasure to present Jeff Jerome for consideration as Employee of the Month for February 2016. Jeff serves as a recreational technician at Redbud Run Elementary School, where he leads the before and after school basic rec program for Parks and Recreation Department. On December 17, 2015, at the holiday party for the kids attending the program, Jeff was alerted to a participant choking on a piece of food. He responded immediately to the struggling child and performed the Heimlich maneuver to free the piece of food from the child's airway to avoid a tragic outcome. Jeff responded appropriately and timely to this true emergency and used his training and expertise to solve a traumatic event in a matter of seconds. Jeff showed that the training the Frederick County Parks and Recreation Department puts each staff person through is vitally important. Would entertain a motion to approve Jeff Jerome as Employee of the Month.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion is second.
Second.
All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Jeff Jerome's hereby recognized as Frederick County Employee of the Month for February of 2016. The Board of Supervisors extends its gratitude to Jeff for his outstanding performance and dedicated service and wishes him continued success in future endeavors. Congratulations. Well done, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right. Committee appointments, if we can get there. We have an opening at the MPO Technical Advisory Committee, vacated by Eric Lawrence, former planning director. Anyone have a thought about how we'd like to handle that one?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to recommend our current planning director, Mr. Michael Ruddy, for that position.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second? Is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Mr. Ruddy will be appointed to serve on the Technical Advisory Committee of the MPO. Northwestern Community Services. Where are we with that one?
Mr. Chairman, I submitted an application last meeting for Deborah Rockwell, who has shown an interest in serving on this committee. I've spoken to her. She does have a deep commitment to this particular committee, would love to serve and has the time to serve, and so I would recommend approving Deborah A. Rockwell as a member of the Northwestern Community Services Board of Directors.
So a motion, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second? Is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Deborah A. Rockwell is appointed to serve. Brings us to Parks and Recs, Redbud. Mr. Supervisor Dunn.
Mr. Chairman, I have a recommendation for Chris Fordney to serve on the Parks and Recreation Committee. He has a strong interest in outdoor activities, in parks, and in recreation. I think he would be a man that would make a contribution to the county.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
And a second? Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, we just received this, or I just received this tonight, and so in keeping with no surprises, I would ask if Mr. Dunn would be willing to put this off until the next meeting, so those of us who wanted to contact Mr. Forney be able to do so before we vote on this matter.
That'd be fine, Mr. That'd be fine.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dunn.
Second concur?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we'll delay this to our next meeting. Appreciate Mr. Forney's interest. Planning Commission, Stonewall. Supervisor Slaughter.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This position has been vacated by Mr. Crockett, who had been in contact with me, and he has graciously offered to continue serving until the representative that had expressed interest would be able to do so for us. So with that in mind, I appreciate Mr. Crockett's interest in continuing to make sure that Stonewall is represented, and I would recommend that we accept his.
So we have a recommendation. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
And a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Stan Crockett's appointed to continue his role as a Stonewall District representative on the Planning Commission. Historic Resources Advisory is not due until April. I'm sorry. I did. I'm sorry. Extension Leadership.
Mr. Chairman, as liaison to the Extension Leadership Council, I have worked with Ms. Wolfrey, and as we can see here from communication from the Extension Agent Mark Sutphin, Mrs. Wolfrey is willing to be reappointed, and given her good work with that particular group, I would recommend that Mrs. Wolfrey be reappointed to the Extension Leadership Council as a member at large.
We have a recommendation. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
And a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Judy Wolfrey is reappointed to the Extension Leadership Council. Now to Historic Resources. That one's not due until April. I'd like to delay that one unless someone else has a different thought.
That's fine.
Works.
All right, thank you. Sanitation Authority, Stan Crockett and Martha W. Dilge. Terms expire in April. Are we ready to act on those?
Mr. Chairman, I didn't contact them, and I can on the Sanitation Authority since I'm the liaison there, so I can do that and report back at the next meeting.
Okay. Does that work for everyone?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. And I think that brings us to the end of the list. So item number 4 is a request from Frederick County Schools to participate in the spring 2016.
Let's postpone or delayed.
Nope. I'll catch up. So that brings us to a committee report, Joint Human Resources and Public Safety Committees.
Mr. Chairman, the Human Resources Committee met at 8 a.m. on February the 12th in the county office building. Also present were the members of the Public Safety Committee. The primary purpose of the meeting was to review requests for the creation, but not funding, of new positions. The first item on the agenda was a request from the Old Dominion Alcohol and Safety Action Program to create a full-time records clerk. This does not, Mr. Tibbs, maybe you can assist me. I think that was, did not involve the appropriation of county funds.
No, it did not. They had funds that they could transfer into that line item to cover the full-time expense for the remainder of the fiscal year.
The board should approve that.
Yes, sir.
So the committee recommended approval to the board, and I so moved.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second, is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, was contained in your packet. It's my understanding that the board had never actually taken the steps to approve the number of slots in the various departments. So in a sense, we're taking two steps. Number one was to receive a report that was the starting point, was the current positions that are funded within each department of the county, and then requests by the various departments for new funds, or excuse me, for new positions, and I so move as contained in the report in your packet.
The motion, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second, is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Supervisor Hess, does that include the items including the sheriff and the firefighters?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I was at the meeting, and upon further reflection, would like to make a motion to, I'll tell you the reasons why. The motions on these were to go and...
We had a motion, so let's have your comment, and then we'll see
All right.
if we can get back there, please.
The motion simply would be to reduce the number of firefighters to a total of 9 total, and to reduce the number of sheriffs to a total of 9 total.
That was not 9 total, but 9 new positions.
Correct. 9 new positions total in both cases.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second. If you'd like to make that in the form of an amendment to the motion,
Yes, sir.
we could accept that. So is there a second to the amendment to the motion? Anyone? All right, so I'm afraid I'll die for lack of a second.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to point out again that this is not approval of funding of these positions, just the creation of the slots, kind of a table of organization, if you would, for the various departments.
All right. Further discussion, anyone? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. All right, that brings us to item number 1 under public hearings, an outdoor festival request of Opequon Presbyterian Church, Opequon on the Lawn. Pursuant to the Frederick County Code, Chapter 86, Festivals, Section 86-3, permit required, application issuance or denial fee for an outdoor festival permit. Festivals to be held on Saturday, April 9th, 2016, from 12 noon to 5 p.m. on the grounds of Opequon Presbyterian Church at 217 Church Lane, Winchester, Virginia, 22602. Property owned by Opequon Presbyterian Church. Is anyone presenting? Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm Mike Butler. I'm with Opequon Presbyterian. I'm chairman of the event, and if you all have any questions or such, please feel free.
Questions? Yes, sir.
Yes,
This
Gary.
this would be the second time we've held this, right?
No, this is, well, we had one last year. It was all inside, but this one will be outside mainly this year.
Okay, that's a different set. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Butler? If you could, Mr. Butler, we have another.
Oh, yes.
I noticed under the parking and traffic, you have the parking on the church grounds, but I know with that traffic light on Valley Avenue that we've been trying to get something done about. Have you possibly contacted the sheriff's department about maybe some assistance there? I don't know what kind of volume you're going to have, but.
Well, we expect around 200, 250 people. I have not yet contacted the sheriff, but he was sitting behind me this evening, so.
Might grab him while he's here.
Yeah, I'll make a lunch date with him or something, but I will.
Just a suggestion, do that
Absolutely,
intersection.
because making that left-hand turn can be kind of tough. So yes, we will definitely talk to the sheriff's department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Butler? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak concerning this application? If you would come forward, please, name and magisterial district, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
My name is Rebecca Morrison of the Gainsborough District. The advertisement of this public hearing in the Winchester Star on Tuesday, February 23rd, was not stated correctly. It stated property owned by Opequon Presbyterian Church. Now, if any Frederick County Presbyterian USA Church wishes to leave the USA denomination, they have to pay the Shenandoah Presbytery to acquire use of the property. Therefore, unless at this time the Frederick County Attorney wishes to rule that all Frederick County Presbyterian USA churches own their own property and do not have to pay for their property from the Shenandoah Presbytery, this public hearing should not be held due to being misadvertised. Or if this public hearing is continued without a ruling, the board does so ignoring their own proper advertising.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Williams, would you wish to make a comment?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that's how it shows in the property records of the county. Trying to confirm that as we speak. And if that's the way it does show in the property records, I don't think that the board's action acting based on the way it's shown in the property records is in contravention of any rights.
Maybe you can go to the next speaker while he's looking it up.
I'm sorry?
Maybe we could go to the next speaker while he's looking it up.
Yes, regardless of where we end up on that question, I'd like to offer opportunity for others to comment if they've made the effort to come out. We'll have to determine what we do with the information we've received from the hearing.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, confirm, it shows in the Commissioner of the Revenue's property records as Opequon Presbyterian Church of Winchester, Inc. It would appear that the advertising is consistent with that designation, and I don't think it's probably the board's purview to get into the details of church ownership beyond what's in the tax records.
Thank you, sir. Based on that, we'll continue the public hearing. If there's anyone else who would like to speak concerning this application? Anyone at all? All right, we'll close the public hearing. How would the board like to handle this one?
This is a Back Creek, Mr. Chairman. I will take the lead. I would make a motion to approve the outdoor festival permit request of Opequon Presbyterian Church, Opequon on the Lawn, to be held Saturday, April 9th, 2016, 12 to 5 p.m.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
And a second. Is there any discussion? Anyone? I think I failed to close the public hearing, so let me do that and correct that mistake. Any discussion? Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion carries. Item number 2 is an amendment to the 2015-2016 fiscal year budget pursuant to Section 15.2-2507 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended. The Board of Supervisors will hold a public hearing to amend the fiscal year 2015-2016 budget to reflect general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $7 million and a school capital fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $4 million. These funds will be appropriated for capital. Anyone presenting any
You
information?
want me to
for-
speak to it and before you open the
Like,
public hearing?
surely.
As a result of conversations and budget work sessions with the board and related to the school board capital request and county capital request, the board asked that we look at fund balance to determine if there was sufficient excess fund balance to fund some of those capital needs now by amending this year's budget. So the public hearing is for the purpose of considering whether to amend this year's budget to add $7 million, which would then be used $4 million to transfer to the schools for capital projects and $3 million on the county side of the house for capital projects, which is the recommendation that came from staff.
Did you want to comment?
If I may ask a question, in looking at the information we have here, it seems to reflect that there'll be $11 million transfer. I know it's semantics, the wording, but it's a $7 million supplemental appropriation. But as you said, $4 million to the schools, $3 million to county capital projects.
Your funding for the school is a transfer from your general fund to the school, so you have to appropriate the whole amount in your general fund, and then in order for them to spend it over in their fund, it has to be appropriated in their fund.
I understand that. I just want to be sure that everyone understands we're not appropriating 11 million.
No, sir.
It's just a total of 7.
No, sir.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? This is a request to send to public hearing.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion to send it to public hearings, or second?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. This actually is the public
Is the
hearing.
public
Yes,
hearing.
sir. You all voted at your last meeting to set the public hearing for tonight, so this would be the public
And
hearing.
the Board of Supervisors would hold a public hearing. Yes, okay. All right. So this is a public hearing to amend the fiscal year 15-16 fiscal year budget. Anyone would like to speak to this proposed amendment, please come forward. State your name, magisterial district. Limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for allowing me to address you this evening. Sean Graber from the Back Creek District. I have a little bit of heartburn with this. I've been following the events about 30 days ago or so, give or take a few days. I was here at a joint work session with this board and the school board. And what I heard the school board mention at that meeting was that there was approximately $3 to $4 million remaining funds left over from a middle school that's being built here in the county, and that these funds were going to be reappropriated for other things. Now, instead of coming back to the county and asking for additional monies above and beyond that, it may be prudent to think about asking them to use that $4 million, $3 to $4 million left over from that school to put towards their capital needs. And it may not be a bad idea to ask those fine folks if they couldn't cut their budget by 1/100% to maybe cover that other 1 to 1.2 million that they may need. I know that it may be a stretch, 1/100th. But us as taxpayers, we've continually been asked to pay more and more and more. If you look at the budget just for schools alone, as far as the debt and things that we've had to incur over the last 4 years, there have been approximately a 33% increase over the last 4 years, and it continues to rise. I ask that you please consider this as you move forward with this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak concerning this proposed amendment? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mrs. Garten, David Savine, Superintendent of Schools. I would like to just highlight for the board the action of the Frederick County School Board related to this budget adjustment request. On February the 2nd, our school board did review and took action, and the request is slightly under $5.2 million. As referenced in work sessions and certainly in January when I presented the proposed budget for the fiscal year 17 in a joint meeting, did have the opportunity to highlight the highest priority needs in terms of capital projects. I'd like to also emphasize that those items were not rank ordered. They were just simply the highest priorities. Upon board action, and since discussions and certainly being aware of Mrs. Garten and staff's recommendation to consider a 57-43 split, the board has since take action for consideration regarding the VPSA bond application, which would allow them, if the board so chooses, to take action to only fund $4 million of the 5.2 request. That will position them for you to at least consider the remaining 1.2 million. As was discussed earlier in the work session, there are multiple funding options for the board. It was discussed perhaps an opportunity in June. We would simply request your consideration for school board's action of the highest priorities of 5.2 million for capital projects.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak concerning this application? Anyone at all? We thank you for your comments. We'll close the public hearing. How would the board like to handle this request?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we take the action to make a general fund supplemental appropriation amount of $7 million and a school capital fund supplemental appropriation amount of $4 million.
Motion, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second, discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Supervisor Dunn.
I'd like to amend Mr. Lofton's motion to reduce the total amount to $4 million, of which that $4 million will go to the school. And if the county administrator needs additional funding between now and July 1st, that she can come back at that time, and I'll be glad to reconsider it.
Heard the proposed amendment. Is there a second? Second? Amendment will die for lack of a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion
Mr.
on the
Chair-
motion?
Sorry, Mr.
Supervisor
Chairman.
Lofton.
I think the action that we're about to vote on would, as Dr. Savine pointed out, secure the money for those critical needs that are timely in as much as when they have to get done. And then the 1.2 we can address maybe with Mr. Dunn's suggestion at a later time, maybe in June, because those, I understand those projects can take place after that June 1st deadline without disrupting or not being able to have any critical needs that aren't met. So I think this is a good approach to that. As far as the $3 million for the county, we have needs that we have put off, and as Supervisor Hess has mentioned several times, at some point we have to address those. So I think this is the right move to make at this time.
Further discussion?
The only other comment I would like to interject into that is the fact that part of those capital requests for the county included refurbishing of various pool facilities that would need to take place before the pools actually open. So it may be necessary that some of those funds would be used prior to us being able to appropriate the funds by July the 1st when the new budget would take place. As I understand it from our budget discussions, irregardless of whether we appropriate those funds tonight, does not necessarily mean that we are going to go out tomorrow and spend those funds. But I do know that there are cruisers that need to be ordered, and it takes months to be able to we can't just go to a parking lot and pick those up. So there are various other issues that need to be considered as well.
Further discussion? Anyone?
I respect Supervisor McMahon-Slaughter's comments. I just believe that, from what I know, this initial request came because the school board said we had a critical request, so I'm trying to be accommodating to their critical request of the 5.2. In my review of that, I felt that there was at least 1.2 million that was not critical in my opinion, and so therefore I wanted to drop it to 4. If they had never made the request, then I don't think we would have a discussion necessarily, keyword necessarily, on the county side. So that's the reason that I made the motion I had. I understand there's no second, but this is my thought process.
Understand.
Further comments?
The only other question that I would like to ask, or perhaps we could have some comment on, is the savings on the Frederick County Middle School. The bond issuance, as I understand it, with the Frederick County Middle School would be less what the school savings would be. We wouldn't be borrowing any more than what actually they would need to finish their project. So it's not like we would be borrowing the full amount, not needing it, and the school would just be using those funds. That is my understanding. And I'm seeing Dr. Sovine nod. I'm not sure if that's appropriate for me to.
Let's not get too far off the motion, but good information is good.
Yes, Ms. Slaughter, that is correct.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, we're ready to vote. Supervisor Dunn?
Nay.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries. That brings us to our relocated item number 4, a request from Frederick County Schools to participate in the Spring 2016 Virginia Public School Authority bond sale and public hearing date for March 23rd, 2016. Further information? Anyone? How would the board like to handle the request?
Mr. Chairman, I would say, in view of the action we just took in addressing what Dr. Sovine has pointed out as critical needs, that we do not act on this request for the spring bond, because I believe we can get his needs fulfilled. Obviously, the critical needs now, and 1.2, I believe we can work to see that those are met at June, when we look and see what revenues we've brought in, what expenses we've been able to reduce. And so I would not recommend acting on this request at this time.
Do you intend that to be a motion or a comment?
Motion, if that's what it needs.
And I would second that.
And a second. Is there any discussion? None? All right, we're ready to vote. Supervisor Slaughter.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Hess.
Nay.
Supervisor Dunn.
Nay.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion carries. That will bring us to Planning Commission public hearing. Conditional use permit number 05-15 for the Winchester chapter of the Isaac Walton League, which submitted for an expansion of a non-conforming use for the expansion of an outdoor recreational shooting area. Property is located at 2863 Millwood Pike. It is identified with property identification number 77-A-72 in the Shawnee Magisterial District. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, again, this is a application for a conditional use permit. The property is, as you pointed out, Mr. Chairman, located at 2863 Millwood Pike. It's in the Shawnee Magisterial District. Property currently is zoned RA rural areas, as are the surrounding properties. This current land use is a non-conforming use that's being currently used as a outdoor recreation use. The proposed use, again, is expanding of the outdoor shotgun shooting range, therefore would expand this non-conforming use. If I could turn your attention to the map to your left, I'm going to try to blow this up a little bit so we don't have much confusion where this proposed shotgun range would will occur. It's right in this area on the Isaac Walton property. I'll get into more as I go through the staff report of what's occurring there now in the acreage that we concern of this conditional use permit that's before you tonight. Outdoor shotgun shooting ranges are considered an outdoor recreation use in our rural areas zoning district. They also have to have a approved conditional use permit. Research of the county records on this particular property shows there never has been an approval for the existing 149 acres of the Isaac Walton shooting or facility, I should say. Therefore, the facility was established prior to the requirement of a conditional use permit for any outdoor uses, and is considered to be illegally non-conforming as we look at it today. So that is why we're before you tonight, or they are before you tonight for this application to expand that non-conformity. Due to the non-conforming status, of course, any intensity of the use is not permitted. The applicant desires to expand the size and location of this outdoor shotgun range to increase the level of non-conformity as can only be accomplished through a conditional use permit approved by the Board of Supervisors. This proposed shooting range will cover an area of approximately 3 acres and be used for clay targets launched by trained shotgun range supervisors. The applicant has indicated this proposed range will be used for shotguns of 12, 16, 20, 28, and 410 gauges, and the only shot size will be used is 7.5 or smaller. There's also going to be a shotgun powder range with this application, and will be used in conjunction with the range. The range will be under supervision of an Isaac Walton appointed and trained firearms supervisor at all time when the range is in operation. Now, this CUP will expand the facility that currently has a lodge building, a picnic shelter, a rifle range that's down there right now that has been in use, and fishing areas. Access to this property is via a keypad gate system for members only. Now, if you go to your screen to your left, this was an outline, and I'm going to kind of blow it up a little bit. And it's also, I think, in your on your iPads also. This is what the applicant had submitted for this expansion of the shotgun range. You can see it says a shotgun shooting area, and there's the old existing rifle range, which if the board needs to, I'll bring back the map to kind of show you where it's at, because that range is a little bit more east toward the Opacking Creek range. Yeah, this property today is a total of 149 acres that's currently out there now at the Isaac Walton facility, and they're only requesting that a 3-acre part of that be used for the outdoor shotgun range. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on this and recommended approval of the conditional use permit. I want to point out, though, that on our review agencies, we did have an adverse comment that was pointed out by the Airport Authority. What the Airport Authority required this applicant to do was to apply for an FAA clearance request. That request is in your agenda. However, I just want to be advised, as you all well know of, we do run these FAA requirements and our own local requirements when we do telecommunication towers, and sometimes we have conflicting issues there with the local review agency and the FAA. So just to keep that in mind, we did have an adverse comment from a review agency on this application. However, should the Board of Supervisors feel this use to be appropriate, the Planning Commission recommend assigning 3 conditions to this conditional use permit. And again, it's just for the shotgun range only. One is all review agency comments and requirements should be complied with at all times. Number 2, shooting activities shall be supervised by qualified personnel at all times. And number 3, any expansion or change use will require a new conditional use permit. Ms. Joan Fine, who's representing this application, is here to answer any questions that the board may have, Mr. Chairman. And as always, staff is here to try to answer any questions you may have also. Thank you.
Questions of staff? Anyone?
I have one question. In regard to the conditional use permit, as I understood it from the initial proceedings at planning, some of the questions related to time schedules for when the shooting could transpire. Is this not a part of the conditional use permit, that it would be allowed during certain hours?
Yes, Ms. Lutter, with a conditional use permit, as you're well aware of, this board could set up a condition if they want. I'll let the applicant answer any questions you may have on it, but yes, that could be part of this application if you want to move forward tonight.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions of staff?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
2 comments. Number 1, just for the record, I am a member of Isaac Walton. I've been a member for approximately 2 years. I've shot on this shotgun range 1 time only. Having said that, you made a comment on a modification on the conditional use. There are 2 areas to shoot. One is to shoot trapper skeet, that's shooting into the air. There's a second area where you can shoot in a pattern that is parallel to the ground, whatever height the person is, shooting a target that's probably no more than 4 feet or 5 feet off the ground. Is your recommendation to have that area supervised as well, or is that not part of the other?
That is part of the whole application, Mr. Dunn, and it would have supervision there also.
And from a staff perspective, your thought or reason on that?
It was just the applicant wanted to add that to, kind of clean it all up, because it is part of that range, as I showed you on the map. So that was their suggestion.
Thank you.
Other questions of staff?
May I ask
Yes,
one more?
Florida.
In looking at the graphs and so forth and the maps that you included in our packet, I don't get a real clear sense. Is there water around where these clay skeets would drop?
No, ma'am, but when I walked out, there wasn't, but that's why I looked at the applicant.
I wasn't able to go out. Obviously, it's closed to the public, and I was just curious, looking at the map, I couldn't tell from the map if there were water sources close.
There could be water today, though.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments of staff? Thank you, sir. The applicant would like to present any information or respond to questions?
I'm Joan Fine, and I'm the attorney for the Winchester Isaac Walton League. The Winchester Isaac Walton League is a Virginia chapter of the Isaac Walton League of America. And the Isaac Walton League of America was founded on the principles of conservation of land and water. The Winchester chapter has had a shotgun range in addition to fishing and conservation programs going back to the 1960s. And I'm going to introduce our president, Jim Sherry, who will give you more details about the plans and the shotgun range. Thank you.
If you would, Ms. Fine. Are there any questions, Ms. Fine?
And I'll certainly be available if any other questions come up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Jim Sherry, the president of the Winchester chapter of the Isaac Walton League. And I prepared some remarks. Our new board of directors, and by new I mean we were elected following a lawsuit that was finally decided last June. And we were elected for the purpose of addressing a number of problems and issues that were uncovered as a result of that lawsuit. We have addressed all of the problems, and we believe they're under control. One thing we did not expect was to have a problem with the shotgun range, which was running perfectly as far as we knew. However, we learned otherwise in October of last year when we were advised that no conditional use permit had been approved for that facility. We very quickly responded to the county's notification by preparing a new CUP application. We learned in a letter from the Winchester Airport Authority that a Federal Aviation Administration obstruction evaluation was also required. We requested the evaluation and have been advised that the facility by the FAA that the facility does not represent an obstruction hazard. We've also facilitated on-site inspection of the range for any interested parties. And we'll certainly welcome visitors by prior arrangement. The shotgun range, which we closed in the fall pending resolution of the CUP application, had been providing, and we expect if the CUP is approved that we'll soon again provide a safe and secure venue for shotgun enthusiasts to pursue their sport. The chapter's been shooting shotguns at clay targets since at least the 70s. Our current location is closely supervised, limited in access, and has a record of safe operation over the 15 or 16 years that it's been in operation. The range is located, as you've heard, on about 3 acres. It's under chapter supervision whenever it is in use. That is, a designated range supervisor is present to assure the equipment is operated properly and safely, and that the shooters comply with our chapter safety requirements. I do want to correct a misapprehension that I probably caused in the February 10th hearing having to do with the range's hours of operation. I spoke of the range operating on weekends between the hours of 1 and 3 p.m., depending on the availability of a range supervisor. I was trying to emphasize, because it's, I think, such an important point for everybody to understand, that the facility is only available, that facility is only available for use by our members if a range supervisor is present. The official hours of the shotgun range are from 8 a.m. to 1/2 hour before sundown, Monday through Saturday, and from 9 a.m. to 1/2 hour before sundown on Sunday. However, to use the range during those hours, members must coordinate with a designated range supervisor who must be present whenever the range is in use. Because of that restriction, the shotgun range is usually used on the weekend schedule. Our members are subjected to a rigorous orientation, focusing on establishing a detailed understanding of our safety rules and regulations before they are permitted to access to and use of any of our range facilities. Our property is protected from unauthorized access by a locked vehicle gate, which is now under video surveillance. In short, we think we've done everything we can to help the Frederick County authorities recognize that this conditional use permit should be approved and issued to the Winchester chapter of IWLA. And I do add a by the way. As I mentioned earlier, I and the board of directors have been focused on problem solving and improvements to the chapter. As such, we've largely been focused inward on resolving issues that may have impacted the efficient running of the chapter. Our hearing on February 10th convinced me and others on the board and other of our members that were in attendance that we need to look outward as well. To that end, one of our members has reached out to a couple of our nearest neighbors to better understand their concerns and to show them how the chapter operates. We understand that there's fence mending to be done, and we think we've made a pretty good start. We intend to continue that. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Shuri?
Would you have any objections to including as a condition the operating hours that you have specified that are currently the ranges available?
No, sir, I would not.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I have one more, Mr. Sherry. In looking at the information that was presented, the FAA had a comment regarding lighting. And in reading the material, do you all have lighting on your facility?
Not anywhere near the shotgun range, no, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Others? Other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Anything to add, Ms. Hahn? Anything to add?
No, not at this time. If I may reserve.
We will do that for you, yes. Okay, so this is a public hearing. Anyone would like to comment concerning this application? If you'd come forward, it's your name, your magisterial district, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
My name is Warren Golightly. I live in the Shawnee Magisterial District. I'm a neighbor of the Isaac Walton League. I think we have a problem of mission creep. As their attorney pointed out, the purpose of the Isaac Walton League was preservation. Preservation for fishing and for enjoying the outdoors. It's beginning to morph into a gun club. And the president of Isaac Walton has already admitted that there have been problems. And I want to tell you a little bit about the problems. There is rapid fire of weapons from morning to evening, even on weekends and on Sundays. I have tenants. I live as a neighbor, but I have tenants who are also neighbors. And this behavior disturbs the quiet enjoyment of my property for me and my tenants. It is also detrimental to the property values of my property, and it impacts the amount of rents that I can ask. And finally, I like to suggest, according to published reports, there's going to be an FBI building in the vicinity, and I don't think that the FBI is going to appreciate semi-automatic and automatic weapon firing in their vicinity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to comment concerning this application?
My name is Ed Keenan, and I'm in the Shawnee District, and I appreciate this opportunity to come before this Board of Supervisors. Our property, we have approximately 200 acres. The east side of our property is a border with Isaac Walton, and I just wanted to mention that on Sunday, February 21st, Supervisor Dunn called me, and on Monday, the 22nd, he came over to get a better understanding of what my concerns were and to take a look at the lay of the land from our side of the property. As he mentioned, he is a member of Isaac Walton for the past 2 years, so he had already looked at that side of the property. But he wanted to see what my concerns were. I mentioned at the Planning Committee, we were, in past years, back when Mr. DeHaven was chairman of the Planning Committee, they had applied for a unconditional use permit, and then they withdrew it at that point in time. So in any event, we spent about 2 hours together. We walked some of my fence line and indicated, you know, and as he was well aware of, they have 2 ranges now. They went ahead after they withdrew their request for their permit and activated that shotgun range that they had already put in. And they have also built a tower out there that I think in 2006. And, but in any event, we walked the fence line behind my barn area, and just over the ridge is the impact area for the targets. We then walked, some of my fence washed out because we have the Opequon Creek through there, and in high water like we have right now, it's taken out my water gap, which I use to keep my horses in and grandchildren and everybody else from going over onto the property. But in any event, we were able to walk through there, walked into the middle of the range, and whether it was by prearranged or just coincidental, we met with John Doyle, who's in charge of the high-powered rifle range, and Ron Williams, who is the range safety officer. They just happened to be down there. I must say that from my last visit there, when they had no gate, you know, following the planning committee meeting in 1999, which I spoke at, they went ahead and installed a gate because it was Lover's Lane back there. We had a neighbor that's now passed away, Mr. Lamp. He spoke at the meeting and indicated they had helium balloons and were shooting over his property, and he was trying to put up some fence, and he had his little kids with him, and he had to crawl to the bank of the Opequon to get them to stop doing that. But I have to commend him on the gate. I think it's cut out all that riffraff going back in there. My time's up?
If you could conclude.
Okay. Just like to say, let me cut through all that. You know, they changed the hours of operation for the shotgun range. It was going to be 2 days. Now it's the same as what the high-powered rifle range is, 7 days a week. I'd like to see them reduce that a little bit. It is disturbing to the whole community out there. We're getting more and more people living out in that area. I can't understand how they could go ahead and put in that range and put in the tower. Does it conform with building codes? Does it conform with ADA for Americans with disabilities? Can they get into that tower and do what has to be done? And those are some of the issues that concern me. I'm not opposed to that. You know, I'm a two-time Vietnam veteran from Vietnam in the Marine Corps, and nobody likes to shoot any more than me. I'm not a member of the club, but I do, you know, would like to make sure that at least the high-powered rifle range is better secured, where I can walk in there. And they had talked about putting a barrier across there, maybe that, like they have on the Shenandoah River, that warns the people there's a dam up ahead. If they could put that on their property, so if animals or kids or others come through there, they would see that sign overhead that would prevent them from going in there. So those are some of the concerns, and I'm sorry I ran over the time, but I appreciate the time to come before you all.
Thank you, Mr. Keenan. Is there anyone else who would like to speak concerning this application?
Mr. Chairman.
If he was against it, I was going to go ahead of me. I'm Carl Golightly, and I live at 876 Carpers Valley Road. Anyway, my concern is really about safety. I was interested that the airport commission, the airport report that Mr. Sherry said you got from the Federal Aviation. When did you get that? Well, that's fine. Well,
we don't do question and answer, sir.
Okay.
We'll try
Well,
to get you answers to your questions, but we won't conduct a question
thank you,
and
sir.
answer. Thank you, sir.
I find that interesting because last Wednesday, I went to the airport and I spent 45 minutes with Mrs. Manuel, and she is very adamant against this. And she was supposed to be here tonight, but I've been told her husband had a surgery today. He was scheduled for tomorrow, and she told me she would have all the regulations and everything prepared to justify why shooting range should not be, a shotgun range should not be approved. And I would really think that it behoove all of us to hear from her directly on what she has to say and get the real regulations ironed out. Because if there is some discussion from that, it would behoove us to know what is the fact, and we should have some kind of approval from the federal agency to make sure that we're not jeopardizing the taxpayers and ourselves. So I'm sorry she's not here. I don't think she's here. I looked around, I couldn't find her. And I only came to support her. I wasn't even going to talk, but quite frankly, she was adamant. She told me she was going to look up all the rules and try to be nice and courteous when she presented them. So that is really what I came to talk about this evening. It is important that we get some kind of rules in terms of when people shoot. My property is right along that line with my brother-in-law's and my sister's property and my brother's. And you know, sometimes they start pretty early and stay pretty late. And I have a problem with the type of weapons they're shooting. I'm not sure that they go in awful rapid fire. So I think that they are automatic weapons, and I just wonder about that, and whether that range is really the rifle range now is really adequate. But that too should be brought up to 2016 standards. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I took too much time.
Thank you, sir. If you would see Mr. Charon after the meeting,
Yes.
he will answer your question for you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to comment concerning this application?
Good evening. My name is Jen P. Mitchell III. I live in Stevens City. I wanted to answer Ms. Judith McLean Slaughter's question more thoroughly. If I made a mistake, maybe I misunderstood you, but you asked if any water was nearby,
Yes.
meaning nearby the 149 acres of the club's property.
No, where you are actually shooting in the clay skeets would be dropping.
Okay, they drop on solid earth.
Okay.
But the answer is there's a pond, a lake, a pond we own a pond on the club. Okay, so make that completely clear. And the eastern boundary, part of the eastern boundary of the property line, is the Opequon Creek. So in answer to your question, is there water nearby? The answer is yes. In answer to your question, are the clay targets falling near the water? Well, what's your definition of near the water? I mean, there's several hundred, if not many hundred of feet away from the water. Except like you mentioned tonight, the whole place is water. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to comment? Anyone at all? I'm going to offer Mr. Keenan if he would like an opportunity to speak a second time, if he'd like an additional 3. It's your option, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir,
Before he
Mr.
begins, on the previous time that Mr. Keenan spoke, he asked the question whether it was coincidental or not coincidental. I assure you, Mr. Keenan, it was coincidental. I was as surprised as you were. I had no idea that anyone was there. It was not prearranged. I truly had come to see you, and then we walked on there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I believe they were surprised we walked right into the center of the shooting range. And I think they fired one shot before we got there. And I said, you take the point.
I offered to do it. They missed.
Anyway.
Don't let Supervisors Dunn use up your 3 minutes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, let the gentleman have a full 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
Good.
I think I stopped with Mr. Williams, the range safety man, and he told me he's going to be down there at least 90 to 95% of the time when they're shooting to observe for anybody using alcohol. They can use alcohol on the property. They can have picnics and all that stuff, and but they're not supposed to have it on the range. So, but anyway, he said he's there for that. He assures that there's no automatic weapon firing, only no offhand shooting. They have to shoot from the benches, and they have improved some of that range down there since my last visit over there, which has been a number of years ago to retrieve some cattle or something like that. But anyway, they do shoot 7 days a week from 8 o'clock in the morning until half hour before sunset. I was really happy to hear that the shotgun range wasn't going to do that, because that was great. You know, that's just about parallel to my house. But anyway, and on Sundays, they start at 9 o'clock in the morning and go till 1.5 hour before sunset. It would be nice if we could do something there, maybe just start at noon. There's a little Carpers Valley Church down there that I'm sure hears a good bit of that shooting going on when they're trying to have services there, even though I go to another church in town. But, and again, as I pointed out, 1999, I talked here at this podium just at that point and said that at the outcome of that, they withdrew their unconditional use permit, but they went ahead and put the range in anyway. The range was there even when they came to ask for that permit at that point in time, but they weren't using it. But they've been using it all that time, you know, what's that, 15 years? And like I said, there's a tower out there that was put in a little bit later. You know, I built a house and 2 swimming pools on my property. I had to have permits every step of the way. I had electricians, plumbers, everybody come and look at that before we backfilled anything. I don't know how you can go ahead and put something in and have nobody inspect it. So anyway, again, that's about the gist of what I had to talk about. So I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If it's
Mr.
appropriate,
Lofton.
if it's appropriate, could I ask Mr. Keating a question? You talked about.
Too much here.
I'm sorry?
Don't go too far with the question and answer
No,
stuff,
I
please.
just wanted to know, you talked about differing hours that might suit the neighbors better. You mentioned on Sunday 12 to an hour, half hour. What weekdays would you like to see?
I'm not too concerned about that. I think most people have jobs and are out working and stuff, you know, but primarily on Sunday particularly, I know everybody likes to snap in their rifles and get ready for deer season, that sort of thing, and I have no objection to that. I have no objection to the shotgun range. You know, I like that better than the high-powered rifle range because they can't hit my property, you know, if it were to be a wild shot or whatever. But with the high-powered rifles, you know I used to fire 500 meters in the Marine Corps, and 500 meters would put that into Mr. Golightly's house, you know, but they have moved one of the berms. They talked about moving another berm a little bit further to the left. So, you know, I work right above the berm area on my fence line. For 47 years, I've been taking care of the fence. Nobody from Isaac Walton has put a lick into that fence, but I've done it for 47 years since I've been on the farm. And trees fall down from their side or my side, I have to cut them up and fix the fence. But the one fellow on the range said he would assure me he gave me his phone number. If I called him and I was working on my fence, they would shut the range down for that period of time, and then I'd give him a call back, and he would go ahead and open the range, which I thought was good. So there is a little bit of communications going on there, like different than in the old days. So,
Thank you.
did I answer
Yes, sir,
what
you
you
did.
asked me? Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much for the second opportunity.
It's fine.
I'd like to clarify a couple of things. The rifle and pistol range, we are working on some of the rules and making sure, absolutely sure, that that is going to be handled safely. And there are no illegal guns being used on the Isaac Walton property. I also want to make that clear. But we are here today, we're here tonight about the shotgun range. And that's what the conditional use permit that we're asking for. And the shotgun range has been explained by Mr. Sherry. We do have a locked gate with a camera that sees who comes and goes. We will have range officers at all times when the shotgun range is being used. Every one of the clay target throwers, the launchers, the traps, every one of those are locked in a building. And only the range officers have a key to that building. And only the range officers bring them out when they're there and set them up. So it cannot be used unless a range safety officer is present. So we're here to talk about the shotgun range, and I hope that we've answered your question satisfactorily.
Anyone else have questions? Ms. Fine. Thank you, ma'am. All right, this concludes the public hearing. This is Shawnee.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, and then after I get a second, I'd like to have some comment time if I could first. But I would make a motion to approve conditional use permit 05-15.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Discussion. Supervisor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number of things here that I'd like to just briefly go over. I think, first of all, we are here about the shotgun range, but I believe there's also been some cooperative effort that's gotten into this that I think is a positive. Very familiar with the rifle range. I'm very familiar with Mr. Keenan's farm. He and I spent some times there in the past, and I understand the situation. I think, though, some of the cooperative effort, I spent an hour with Mr. Sherry on Sunday going over the property. I think, what goes on the rifle range, improvements there, working with the adjacent landowners, perhaps to do some additional posting, some additional safety things would be good neighbors and would only build good relationships. I think the Ms. Manuel not being here tonight, I have another hat that I wear as from the Board of Supervisors. I am the chairman of the Winchester Regional Airport Authority at the present time. I talked to Ms. Manuel at great extent. She has family concerns, and I told her that was her first priority, and she needed to be there today to take care of those issues. But I had extensive talks with her. I understand why she issued the opinion she did. But if you also look at the FAA's recommendation, which the letter was dated December the 22nd, on the tower is not even as tall as the trees, so there is no obstruction on the flight patterns. While I was there on Sunday, I noticed the center line of the flight patterns for the aircraft. Very familiar with shotguns, number 7 shot. To me, in my opinion, there is no issue with the shotgun range being adversely affected on the flight pattern or the instrument approaches to Winchester 3-2 or 1-4, the two runways there. So I'm hoping perhaps that the neighbors will they work together. I think Mr. Sherry has had his hands full. I found him very cooperative. The safety issues, I was concerned about that, but they are under lock and key, and only when a range safety officer is there to unlock it can you use the facility or get to the equipment. So, I just wanted to go over some of those issues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further discussion. Supervisor Dunn?
Mr. Chairman, I have talked on Monday, I talked to Dr. Carl Golightly, and Mr. Keenan, because of comments that Mr. Keenan made a week earlier on safety. The issue today is on the shotgun, but we did talk about the rifle range and was trying to allay some of his concerns on his property. I think that we've laid out some thoughts that might be helpful to him, and if the rifle range becomes an issue down the road, then I would think that he would come back and address those again. But at this point in time, the resolution is on the shotgun range, not the rifle range. After talking to Dr. Golightly, I did talk to Mrs. Manuel at the airport and spent probably an hour with her chatting. I asked her a number of questions on her concerns, and she laid them out. One of the things that was interesting was that at the Isaac Walton shotgun range is approximately 2 miles from the end of runway 32. In a normal glide path, at 1/2 mile from the end of the runway, she believes that the altitude of a plane will be approximately 750 feet. I'm not holding her to that, but in the conversation we had, she said she's not a pilot, but in some items that she was drawing out, she said that would be about 750 feet, and therefore, going out to 2 miles, it would be at a higher altitude. She also made some comments that if you fly in this area over a populated area, it's 1,000 feet. If you go over woods, it's 500 feet. if you're a hot dog pilot that breaks the rules, you can go wherever you want, but it's inappropriate. And so under those circumstances, if a plane is flying inappropriate, I don't think the shotgun range that'd be doing something that's wrong. So I think some of the safety issues have been concerned, as Mr. Fisher said. I don't think there's a problem with the shotgun range, where the shot's going, where it's landing. The shot lands on the backside of Isaac Walton's property. There's no water even close to that facility. There's no running water other than standing water in a rainstorm. And I would move that the resolution be approved.
We have a motion and a second, sir. So you would encourage that, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Other discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Based on the comments we've heard, I'd like us to at least consider the idea of perhaps restricting the shooting hours to not occur before noon on Sundays.
Is that a form of a motion to amend?
Yes, sir.
So we have a motion to amend. Is there a second?
I would second that.
And a second. So is there any discussion on the motion to amend the hours? Supervisor Fisher?
I really think that's not an appropriate amendment. If you want to go down there and see what the noise comes from, it's the rifle range, which is a grandfathered use. We have no control over that. The shotgun range, the shotguns, it's not that objectionable compared to what the rifle range will be. So I'm not sure. I would think the typical, if you wanted to put hours of operation, you would just mimic what they do at the rifle range.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I agree with Mr. Fisher. I'm conflating the two, rifle and shotgun. So based upon his explanation here, I would withdraw the second to that motion.
All right, so we're back to a motion without a second. Is there a second to the motion to amend? Anyone? All right, so I'm sorry, your motion will fail for lack of a second. So we're back to a motion to approve with hours as requested. Is there any further discussion?
You're saying that the hours that they stated are now part of the conditions? Because no hours are listed
We did
in
not
there.
amend the conditions.
Okay,
I think the only thing we have to go on is their verbal statement.
right, okay.
Okay?
Mr. Chairman, can the applicant make any comments pro or con on the comment that Supervisor Hess made? Or is that
I would
inappropriate?
prefer not to reopen a public
All
hearing
right,
for
that's fine,
that
Mr. Chairman.
discussion. I
That's
think
fine.
it's, thank
That's
you.
fine.
Further discussion on the motion? Ready to vote? Supervisor Dunn.
Aye.
Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter.
Aye.
Chair votes aye and the motion carries. Brings us to board liaison reports. Are there any? All right. This is a portion of the meeting where the board sets aside time for citizens to comment on any issue they would like to bring to the Board of Supervisors. If anyone like to speak? Anyone? Yes, sir. If you would, state your name, magisterial district, limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Yes, my name is Alan Morrison in the Gainsborough District. I want to address some of the budget discussions that I'll listen to tonight in the work session. The board and staff are working on the unenviable situation of trying to develop a budget in a very difficult time. The board, I think, rightly has over the past several years attempted to hold the line on taxes, hoping for improvement in the economy, which has never occurred. We technically are still in the 9th year of a recession, regardless of what you read in the newspapers. And we have not had a significant improvement in the economy in Frederick County, the state, or the nation. Many of the residents of the county, especially seeing the fact that we are always very happy to have age-restricted developments being built, fall into the retired category. And retired persons either are on fixed incomes, which there were no increases this year, or they're living off investments, which over the last several years and is anticipated over the next several years to be very difficult at best. However, being as we have neglected to spend some monies for years hoping for the economy to improve,
it is inevitable that at some point we will have to make some kind of an increase. And that's not going to be pleasant or popular whenever you do that. When we look at the growth in Frederick County, the growth curve in Frederick County has been fairly steady for the last couple of years and has been fairly limited. When you compare the growth in Frederick County to the growth in the budget request, they bear no semblance. Many of the budget requests, not the approval, but the requests, bear no semblance to reality. The golden goose named as the taxpayer has been squeezed and can only be squeezed so far. I really do not like thinking about any kind of a tax increase. Tax rate has been held fairly steady, even though appraisals have gone up in many cases. Mine has gone up several times in the last 5 years. So again, this is a very difficult situation. We need a degree of realism in the request and not the pie in the sky, and I would like to have all of this stuff. We have to really start squeezing down. In the business world, you can't raise your prices every time you get into difficulty. You have to spend the effort evaluating your processes, looking for improvements, increasing efficiency, and saving money. And we have done some of that in the past, but we have not done enough of it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to comment with the board on any issue? Anyone? All right. Board of Supervisors comments. Are there any? Supervisor Dunn?
Mr. Chairman, that was a very enjoyable work session. I would just say that as we go forward, we have approximately $120 million bill that may come due because of the high school and the elementary school. And I look forward to working with you and the rest of these board members to try to either set aside money up front to pay off bonds so that we do not have a huge bill coming down the pipe, 5 years from now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone? Supervisor Fisher?
Move for adjournment, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
Second. We'll stand adjourned.